Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Grange Hill. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. Welcome to our next episode of Sausage on a Fork. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce the guest for this episode to you. It is Lee Sparke, who played my favourite character ever in Grange Hill, Jonah Jones. So, Lee, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Hello, mate. How are you? You good?
All good, thank you. You?
Yeah, I'm all right. Now that I've found out that I'm your most favourite character ever, yeah, I'm stoked.
Well, that's excellent. Excellent. Right then, let's get straight on with it then. So, if you can explain right before your time on Grange Hill, how did you get into acting? How did all that start for you?
Sylvia Young, her stage school originally was literally a hall in Wanstead. And my cousin saw an advert in a paper that basically said looking for cheeky kids to do sort of acting classes. So my cousin saw that. Me and my brother started going to a few classes, and it was not really acting classes. It was just sort of, it was almost like play. I think I was only about 5 or 6 or something, and it was just like a laugh, right? There's lots of people, you do a bit of play acting, and, you know, it was sort of more fun than anything else, and not really meant to be anything other than, you know, just a local community sort of feel vibe, you know, didn't ever think we were going to start doing TV shows.
So did you get much acting work before you started then?
Well, no, we sort of went to the classes, and then because the idea of the classes were to set you up on auditions, then Sylvie's team would then, you know, say, oh, you've got a McDonald's advert, go up to, you know, you go and do these castings.
Right.
And basically it's pretty weird because, you know, some of the castings you go for, it's an advert, it's like a 3 seconds on screen, and they want you to do like a Shakespeare soliloquy in the audition. You sort of go, I thought this was for jacket potatoes, or, you know, it was quite, you could see how people who haven't been lucky and don't get many jobs would go, I don't think this is the career for me.
Right.
Because it can be really soul destroying to keep, you know, going up the West End, you know, giving your heart and soul for a 30-second, you know, advert. So,
yeah.
But I was quite lucky because I ended up, sometimes it's just a look, you know, and if you've got a sort of look that they're interested in at a certain period, you can sort of luck into a lot of adverts. So I did quite a few between sort of when I was sort of 5 up until I sort of got Grange Hill, really.
Right, okay. Did you get to work with anyone, any big names, any famous people before you were on Grange Hill? Was there anyone who you thought, wow, I'm working with them? Or
I did a thing called Thomas and Sarah, and that was for Yorkshire Telly. But when you're young, you know, that whole, you're sort of a bit clueless.
Right.
So you don't really, you know. So I remember I did a Penguin Biscuit advert in Scotland. And we went up to Scotland to film it, but we went up by train. And Tom Baker was on the train, which was like, Doctor Who's on the train. This is like mind-blowing. So I remember meeting him, but that had nothing to, it was just by pure luck going to Scotland anyway. But, you know, those things sort of stick in your memory, you know.
Yeah. So then you've done all your acting, you've done all these adverts. The McDonald's one is one that I think a few people remember. Did you have to eat many burgers for that advert?
Yeah, mate. It's like literally by the end of it, you're done. It's like, I don't want to eat another hamburger. But then they give you a massive bags full of it to take home with you, because that was filmed on Shaftesbury Avenue, like the McDonald's there. It's like a proper McDonald's, so it's not a studio.
Yeah.
So that was quite, it's fun. Like, it's all a laugh. Like when you're a kid and you're doing that stuff, it's just a laugh.
Yeah.
And I've seen recently somebody put on one of these, one of the groups, an advert that me and Tucker was in. And I didn't even remember doing it. And then you sort of look at it and go, I think that's me. They go, that's bloody Tucker, you know? So you even work with some of the people. Me and Alison that plays Faye Lucas, we both used to do, we've done a few bits and bobs together. And her mum was actually my chaperone before Grange Hill. God bless her, she's dead now. But yes, so you know a lot of these people, and you see them at castings and auditions, and then all of a sudden you see them on the telly and go, that's how geezer. I've seen him all the time. He's like my mate. Sort of thing. So, yeah.
So then, how did you get your part in Grange Hill? What was that audition process like?
That was, I remember it quite vividly, really. I suppose because it was quite a big moment to get such a big sort of part. But I think they'd already picked the geezer that was going to be Jonah. Right. And then Phil Redmond sort of went, I'm not 100% sold on it. So this is the story I was told anyway. But anyway, so they sort of did a re-audition, which I didn't go to any other audition before that. I went to that one. And they sort of, I can't remember how many kids started, but they got it down to sort of 6 or 7 of us. And then you just had to sort of go in and have an argument with a door as if it was your mum and she wouldn't let you go out or something. It was that kind of vibe. Right. And I remember being at the BBC like late because it just went on. It seemed to just go on for hours. And then eventually they sort of come out and went, yeah, you've got that part. Because normally they don't do that. You sort of leave and then you'll get a call a few days later or you won't get any call because you didn't get it. Right. But I think I remember that one. It was like, yeah, they sort of whittled it down until it was just me, and they went, yeah, you've got that gig. Sort of go.
Right. Okay. So
it's very exciting. As a 12-year-old boy, it's like get in.
When you joined, Grange Hill was sort of still in its infancy, if you like. What was it like for you joining the programme?
It's sort of surreal because I used to watch Grange Hill.
Right.
So, although I did grow up watching Tucker and Benny and Alan and that firm, because they were like the new boys. But yeah, you're right. It was sort of new and it hadn't, it wasn't, as it progressed, you knew it was going to be hard-hitting storylines about kids of today, And, loads of people would say to me, oh, my mum won't let me watch that. Yeah. For some people, it was just too much. It was too, even though I didn't feel it was like that, right? Yeah. But, to then get the job on it, and then you sort of go to the BBC and you sort of meet like all the people you've been watching on telly. It's just weirds you out. Like,
yeah.
But they're all sort of, they're all pretty cool, normal people, and you sort of fall into it pretty easily. And it's just like exciting being 12 and going up the West End, going to the BBC at White City, which is where they used to film. The original ones before they moved to Elstree, and then obviously they took it up to. I'm guessing the Liverpool ones were all done up in Liverpool, right?
Yeah. Well, near Liverpool. They just
did the whole show up there, so
yeah.
But it was madness being 12 and being sort of in a full-time acting gig. It was madness.
So when you were on the programme, who were you sort of closest to or best friends with, if you like?
A lot of us would travel together. Right. Because if you're from a certain area, like Lee McDonald, although you all get on when you're there, the people you travel with are the ones you're closest to. There was one of the extras, a geezer called Glenn Skerritt. Anyone that was young'uns, we'd all sort of meet at Mile End, and then we'd meet our chaperones, and then you'd end up going up to White City on the Central Line.
Right.
So that would be the people you travel with because they're, in your local area. And because Sylvia Young's was sort of East London, Lee McDonald went to Anisher, which was North London. So there was Barbara Speaks. A lot of kids come from there. So depending on where you came from, that's how you sort of migrated to the studios or to the location.
Right. Okay. And what was it like working with Lee?
Yeah, I mean, we were just 12-year-old boys. It was like mental, and the storylines were quite fun. Yeah. I mean, our first episodes that we did. Because a lot of the stuff the location stuff seems to be the stuff they try and get out the way first, right. Maybe depending on what month it is and weather and, their best chance of not, getting rained on for, it's the UK, mate, you try to do that.
Yeah.
The very first episodes we did was the Chessington Zoo ones. So you imagine that being your first couple of weeks on Grange Hill. One with sea lions, you're on location. It's just mental. They've got these. They have these massive, trucks, food trucks that do all the food on location. Man, it's just you can have whatever you want whenever you want it. So you'd get these burgers in the morning. You'd go, I'll have some mushrooms, hang some bacon in there, or do us a sausage, and then it's mad. I loved it. The location was best.
So you've just mentioned the Chessington episode there. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone listening knows exactly what happens in Chessington. There was a particular set piece with yourself where you end up in the Sea Lion Enclosure. What was that like? How did you feel about getting that?
my life, I expected them, you know, these days, I don't think they'd let it happen. But back then, I was thinking there won't be sea lions in it. It'll be one of them things where it's a bit of a blag and they'll show you sea lions and then they film it. There won't be sea lions. And then they went, oh, we're just going to, you know, we'll take you in or give you a look around. And I'm sort of going, like, sea lions in there, giving it, yeah, it's a sea lion pond. And it's like, sort of a bit confused. Like, I'm getting in with the sea lions. They went, oh, yeah. So luckily enough, I wasn't a bad swimmer, but I'll tell you, mate, I did some speed. We only took one take, and I was in, and I reckon I could have been an Olympic gold medalist on the back of that one. I absolutely pants myself.
I remember I've watched that a couple of times since, and I thought, like you would have thought, is that they wouldn't have filmed it that way.
And I'm not sure, like, I don't know if it would happen today. It's like, I'm sure you'd have to sign waivers, and I had no idea. What do sea lions do? Do they eat humans? Like, you just, you know, do they have a little nip of a kid because he's come into their pool?
Yeah,
I
don't suppose you were sticking around to find out, really, were you?
I nearly just launched straight out of this thing over the fence, boom, like that. Lee caught me in his arms.
When you were on the program, was there anyone who you really enjoyed working with? Was there anyone, when you had any scenes or anything, you thought, yes, I'm getting to work with them today, or were you just enjoying the moment?
For me, my personal, I just loved being there. It was just a laugh all the time. So being at the BBC, it was really special. So we'd be there filming the same time as things like Top of the Pops.
Right.
So if you can imagine how big a show Top of the Pops was, because you see, you know, UB40 or Spandau Ballet or Bad Manners, and then the next thing you see, like Buster Blood Vessel bowling through the reception, giving it Jesus, Buster Blood Vessel. And we used to like take liberties all over the BBC. We just sneak into the set, and we was always misbehaving. Alison's mum I used to drive her mental, mate, dude. Mental, because she was my chaperone. Right. She'd always leave, mate. You've got to turn it in. You just got to stop it and be like, oh, Jim, all right.
So, kind of with that, what was the relationship sort of between the kids and the adults? Like, did the adults after the adult actors, were they ever on your case for messing about or anything like that? Or was it just you?
No, I think when you get quite a lot of downtime, which is when you sort of misbehave, I suppose, more not misbehave. Yeah, we're 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, so you're just being kids, right? Yeah. And you do get bored out of your nut because, you know, you get stuck in the BBC. You might not, some days you might have one scene, depending on, you know, because if you look at a lot of the episodes, series 5 and 6 I was in, some of the scenes would be, for that episode, would literally be all the stew pot shit.
Right.
So you only have a couple of little bits, but they call it on call. So you have to go in case they get to a stage where they're going to do your one scene, but that could take 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So you're just basically bumming around the BBC, and after a while you just get a bit bored and you get mischievous. So, which is what they wanted. They wanted 12-year-old Cockney mischievous kids. That's what they got.
So were you much different to your character? Because from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like you were any different to him at all.
It wasn't the toughest gig. No accents, and you just had to, you know. I was a 12-year-old schoolboy playing a 12-year-old schoolboy, and it was like, you know, it was a dream come true. It was the easiest gig ever.
Yeah, because I think they'd had Tucker as a mischievous character, but I think you and Zama were brought in to give it a sort of a different direction. I think.
Straight away with that episode 1 of series 5 with the stink bomb thing.
Yeah, right.
But,
yeah.
You know, you've got a kid, and they, you know, and I've said this before about Acton and Roland, like, you know, they specifically wanted an oversized kid. That was their storyline, and you know, they needed to have, you know, the whole thing was about him eating because he didn't like himself, or you know, they're trying to, you know, show real life stuff, right? And him locking himself in the toilet, you know. So it's a serious subject matter. But then, you know, the idea was me and Zamo was sort of just like larriking. So it's just to put something a little bit light-hearted on it, even though it's, you know, quite a serious subject matter, you know. And if you watch his storyline, you know, then he's got his little friend, Simone Nylander, that played Janet, who's sort of on his side, but also not on his side. Yeah. I think if you go back to the first series, you know, they dealt with racism and how people spoke and kids spoke. And then later on, they had the racism thing, obviously the drugs and kids dying at school. They went out of their way to be realistic and true about what was going on at the time, whether people liked that or not, which they obviously did because it became such a popular program. But, it was it was a social culture. It's what's going on in your local school right now. And that's what resonated with people. Because you all knew a Zamo or a Jonah or a Roland or whichever character, or a Gripper. You always had, you knew one of them. That was at your school. You knew the geezer.
Yeah, definitely. And that's been said a lot about the fact that it's one of the reasons why Phil Redmond wanted to make Grange Hill, is because schools on telly at the time were not showing those sorts of characters.
Yeah. Well, even I live in Australia, so there's not, people have discussed it. There's lots of problems over here anyway. So right. On the rare occasion, and normally because they've been put up with it, somebody comes up to me, and I'm like 52, right? They go, "Excuse me, mate, were you on Grange Hill?" And you just look around and say, "Well, who's giving you this to come and say it to me?" Right? But there isn't an Aussie version of it that right. You can really go, "Oh yeah, it was a bit like because there ain't one, Yeah. So a bit like the US wouldn't do, a bit like when the US, they take a program and they spin it. They couldn't really do one because it's just different. Yeah. They just couldn't do it, right?
Yeah. So you've mentioned the Chessington already. Did you have any sort of other favourite storylines or episodes, anything like that? Because you were also involved, as well as the Chessington. For me, Jonah not only got up to a lot, but he seemed to have a lot of good storylines, and he there was a lot of different things that Jonah and Zamo got up to. Like, so did you have any sort of favourite episodes?
We were kind of lucky, and maybe because we weren't series one, and maybe the old purse strings maybe got a little bit looser when you got to series 5, 6, 7, and maybe further on. But, Chessington Zoo, we did an outward bound thing up in Wales that was just, from our point of view, not from the acting, but like, what a mental trip. You know what I mean? We've got Wales where, everything's laid on for you. It was, and we did a lot of we stayed at the place, and it was an outward bound place. So we literally, anything the kids did, we was on there doing that during the days. Come on, we'll go tunnelling, and we'll, it was brilliant. It was exactly what they were filming. It was us just having a brilliant time.
Brilliant. And then in series 6, we got to meet Jeremy, Jonah's cousin. And I remember at the time thinking, why are they going to another school? Because that just seemed mental to me. But then when I was at school, there was kids who did that. They'd get bored with their own school, and they'd go and blag their way into to someone else's school for a bit.
Yeah, look, again, some of the storylines you'd go, no way, that can't be possible. But how would that happen? And then somebody goes to you, yeah, we had people used to do it.
Yeah.
And, because, if you're next to a posh school and you're at the local comprehensive, you go, well, I'm going to go and check it out. Right? Yeah. Whether you end up sitting in a class and actually joining in, I don't know. But again, the side of that storyline was it was a posh school, a bit like the posh school in the zoo. There was us all messing around, misbehaving, and then you've got the posh school, the posh teacher. It was to show those two different worlds. Yeah, we didn't really care much off, right? It was just a laugh. But, there was some serious, topic that they were looking at.
Yeah, you did have Chessington, and you did go to the other school. You mentioned the Outward Bound course, and there was St Albans. There was
Rodney Bennett, mate.
Yeah, and St Albans as well.
Yeah, that was another. And again, you remember those episodes the most, purely and simply because you're not stuck in the BBC, which is a little bit just repetitive, same.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You've done 2 years so far, which I would imagine most cast members were signed on. They signed on each year, and then series 7 started, and I vividly remember this because what was I then? 83. I was just coming up to my 8th birthday, and I thought, yes, Grange Hill's back on. Can't wait to see Zamo and Jonah. Series 7 starts, and one of the first major things is Jonah's not there anymore. Jonah's moved away, and Jeremy, who we met in year 6. In series 6 has come back.
it was a bit weird because when we finished filming Series 6, the talk was, yeah, Series 7 is coming up, blah, blah, blah. The problem being that when Series 7 come up, like, it was like, and guess what? We're going to drown you. And it's like, oh, man, you can't be doing that. Surely I've got another 5 years left in me.
No, so for anyone who doesn't know, because I think it's been well documented now what actually went down. But for anyone that doesn't know, can you explain exactly sort of what went on?
Yeah, so I suppose at the start of every year they give you an idea of what's happening in that show, and they came to me and basically said, "This is what's going to happen to you this series. We're looking at drowning someone, and it's going to be you." And then, but I suppose, fair enough to them. They give you the head that they don't make you sign a contract, and you go, sweet. So what's happening this year? And they go, guess what? Yeah. Day one, you die. So they gave us the heads up, and at the time, I'd missed a lot of school anyway. Did I want to be the kid that drowned in Grange Hill if I did have aspirations of acting more? Because there is typecasting is a thing. Whenever you go and get something next, say, oh, yeah, you're the kids that drowned in Grange Hill. Yeah, brilliant. Anyway, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Although sometimes I suppose it could work in your favour.
Right.
So, but anyway, and I was 14 or 15, right? So it wasn't just a decision by me. It was my family had to make that decision. And it was like, well, what do you want to do? And it's like, I don't know. I don't really want to drown. And then I got an offer to do something else for Yorkshire TV. And it wouldn't, so I couldn't do both. So I just sort of bit the bullet and went, look, bollocks, drown someone else. So, and I'm sure Jeremy's really happy about it because he got heaps of screen time, and now he's the kid that drowned in Grange.
Yeah. Did you know Anthony Minghella, who was the script editor at the time, he actually wrote about that in his biography. There's a bit where he's talked about the problems that they had because scripts have been written, and then it just says an actor turned down the part, and scripts had to be hastily rewritten.
In your face, Anthony. In your face. No, to be honest, I didn't know, but yeah, I suppose they had to because that's the way life is, isn't it?
I just think that's quite a big thing. I think the fact that Anthony Minghella, who went on to be this award Oscar-winning director, sadly no longer with us. I just think it's great that in his book there's this little bit about your defiance, if you like. No, I'm not going to drown.
He's just totally slagging me.
How were you feeling? Were you gutted that you were leaving Grange Hill?
Probably it's a bit like that last day of school. If you know it's your last day of school, then the emotion would set in. But I'd left. I was at home. I hadn't started the new series. Right. I still saw a lot of the guys, and I started dating Lisa York. So even when I wasn't in Grange Hill, I used to go out with them all. We used to go up to Limelight and Stringfellows and all that business. Because they were like a ticket to any club in London. Right. So you go out with Zamo or Faye or Julie March at any of them, you bowl up to the door and they go, Grange Hill Bird. Yeah, come on in, you come in.
Brilliant. Oh, wow, brilliant.
It's madness. So, I still used to see him all the time. But did it really sink in? No, not really. Just because I wasn't there, I didn't really have to go through I didn't have to have a breakup with them.
Right, I get you, yeah. Yeah. And then, so then you've mentioned about Yorkshire TV. Was that...
that was probably... This show was that crap, it ain't even on YouTube. You can't even find it on YouTube. That's how bad.
So what program was it then, Lee?
It's called Behind the Bike Sheds.
Right.
And it was like this. I came in series, I think it was series 2, so there had been a series before, and it was a school thing, but it had singing in it. And anyone that knows me, yeah, I ain't a singer. But then again, I also did Bugsy Malone when I was...
Well, I was going to mention that because you were saying that
about being a singer. And dancing as well. And it's like, what idiot cast you in that?
You played Bugsy Malone in that, did you?
No. It was another kid. But I had a few parts. I was an understudy for Fat Sam. And I was one of the older ones because I did it with Tim Polly.
Oh, right, yeah.
He was in my because we were all under 16 or whatever it was, you could only do X amount of shows.
Uh-huh.
So they sort of had different groups, all trained up. So it would be group 1, group 2, group 3, and they sort of rotated it through like that. But again, like singing and dancing. But I suppose that's what we used to do at Young'uns, at Sylvia Young's. So it wasn't like I hadn't had any experience of singing or dancing. I was just crappy. So.
And was that production? Was that the Mickey Dolenz one?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember at the time that was massive. It was all over kids' TV and the news that they were looking for people to be in it. Like, yeah.
I was quite a big fan of the Monkeys as well.
Right.
So, and I just used, and then so meeting someone like Mickey Dolenz, it's not that one you go, you know, and he was instructing us. So it wasn't, you don't just meet him like you're working with him.
Yes.
You know, it's hard sometimes to get your head around it when you go home on the train, you're listening to the Monkeys giving it. It's been all day, you know.
So I know you probably don't really want to talk about this, but just going back to Behind the Bike Sheds, did you have to move up there or was it filmed?
No, we just used to stay in a hotel
Right.
somewhere. Let's just say it was Yorkshire. I think it was Yorkshire. Which, again, was brilliant because I was like 16. Another guy in it was a London boy called Linus Staples. And again, it was just, when you're not working, we were just misbehaving all the time.
Right.
I might have even been, I can't remember how old I was, but it was old enough that we could sneak booze in and all that game, right?
Right, okay.
Madness.
Brilliant. When you look back at those, the last sort of episodes of Series 6, Jonah was starting to sort of become a little bit alienated, wasn't he? There was a few things that had gone on with the referendum on flexi time. You know, he'd done all the tampering with that, and then the Scruffy McGuffy march. Everyone was annoyed with him because his banner. Which I watched it the other night because in preparation for this, and I thought, are they really getting that angry with him because he couldn't fit the letters on the banner with him? But he was becoming alienated with something, and I think that was how they were going to sort of.
Yeah, look, I suppose it's not anything I've dwelt on or really bothered about. But did Phil Redmond know when he was writing Series 6 that he was going to chop it Series 7?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right, okay.
But I'm sure in some of the hate mail I've sent him since. That's not true. It's not true. I did ask him if he wanted to put me in Hollyoaks, but he didn't want to put me in that either.
No. Well, you didn't get in Hollyoaks, but you did turn up in EastEnders as well. So, because after you've left Grange Hill, you've done Behind the Bike Sheds and that, but then you also turned up in EastEnders for a very short while.
So me and Lisa York had gone to Australia, so we travelled, which I'm guessing was around about 89.
Right.
And we came back around about 91, 92, sort of up to Australia and then through the States and back. And I remember just thinking, sorry, what am I going to do? I don't really want to be grown up and get a proper job again. No. So I phoned up the agency and said, listen, what's going on? Can you get me any work? Is there any auditions on? And I did go for a few auditions, and weirdly enough, you go and see people you haven't seen for 20 years or 10 years, and they're still banging about. They have no luck, and they're still working part-time and still doing all the auditions. Because, you know, it's like anyone. If you only need one decent part, and that could be you made. Yeah. But if you know, there's a lot of actors. It's a tough gig. But if you don't get any work or you only get a sporadic bit of work here and there, you've got to pay the bills. So you've got to go and, you know, be a waiter or, you know, something that's a bit flexible because you have to keep going to these auditions. So you can see how people end up topping themselves probably. It's just, you know, it's very soul destroying. But anyway, so Ronnie, who was my agent at Sylvia Young's, she basically said, look, I'll go and I'll put a few feelers out and see how we go. Anyway, she came back about a week later and went, I've got you a gig, EastEnders, 2 episodes. You don't even have to audition. And I went, boom, I love it. And again, that was mad because you go, you know, it's everyone used to watch EastEnders. Yeah. And then next thing you're on set. You know, with Ricky and all that, it was mad. I loved it. That really was. And then Tucker was on it again. Yeah. And I had a good, decent night out with Tucker, which was really, really funny because I hadn't seen him for years. And, you know, he only knew me as a sort of 12, 14-year-old boy. Next thing, we're both on EastEnders and it's like, come on, let's smash up North London. Yeah, mate, so I remember getting in some lock-in in some boozer at the Angel. It was like a funny, funny night. And again, it's surreal when you wake up in the morning and go, what did you do last night? Oh, yeah, just went out with Tucker and that, you know.
And do you call him
people.
Do you call him Tucker when you're talking to him?
Todd, it's just like sometimes you get confused about real Mark Fowler, isn't it? You get confused about people's real names, their stage names. It's like, oh, which one is it? Anyway, don't matter. Somebody will know what I'm talking about.
You've done that. You've done Eastenders. What do you do next?
That was it. I went. What did I do? I moved back to Australia.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know if I really ever had aspirations of being a massive actor.
Right.
Because I just don't think I just didn't like the hard work. The actual acting I didn't mind doing, but just the day. I mean, it is a tough gig. Like hat off to anyone who keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, looking for that lucky break, because it doesn't always come. You know, and you've got to be dedicated, and you've got to really, really want it, because you've got to do all the other stuff to follow that dream, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I had a fairly decent education. I went into the city straight after school. I traded foreign exchange. When I moved to Australia, I got a job on the futures market because a mate of mine was working there. So I traded here for 10 years. Okay. And then life just evolved, you know. I just started, a few of us moved over to Greece for 5 seasons because we had a bar and a restaurant on an island called Skiathos, which again was just extending my life holiday by sort of working, which was, you know, running a bar. But back then as well, this was 95 to 2000. Like working behind a bar that you owned, all you did was drink and just play up. It was like, again, it was just like being on Grange Hill again. It was like, who can do the most outrageous thing tonight?
Yeah.
It will be me. You never know.
You have basically just lived your life as Jonah Jones, haven't you, really? Because that's exactly what I imagine him, what he would have done as well.
Yeah, well, I think I've lived my life as me, but it just so happens it's a lot like Jonah Jones. So...
And so while all this was going on, were you still in touch with anyone? Because I know you said after you left, you were in touch with the cast, but did you stay sort of in touch with them through?
Yeah, I mean, I did for quite a while, and I still, even now, you know, I'll message Lee or Erkan every so often. If I'm back in the UK, I try and catch up. I saw it last 2 times I was back. Erkan come and have a drink. Right. I normally have like a booze up somewhere, so people sort of float in and float out. But yeah, I mean, everyone's busy, everyone's doing their own thing. You know, we've all got family and friends, and it was a long time ago.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And you know, we sort of went to school together, but we didn't go to school together. We don't live in the same area. Me and Lee used to go on holiday quite a lot, so our families did become quite close because we had to, you know, we were stuck in each other's pockets 24/7 for 2 years. So Lee's mum and dad used to come and stay over ours. We'd all go out, we'd go to Southend, and I used to go away with them sometimes because I've been to a King's holiday camp down at towards Southend with Lee. And you fancy going on holiday with Zamo? It's like, leave me out. They go, that's Jonah. Jesus Christ, it's Zamo. Like, it was like, it's surreal when you're going on with Zamo and he's going, oh, with Jonah. Yeah, I mean, you noticed everywhere you go, like at that age, like it can also be, it can be good, but it can be a bit of a curse because it's like sometimes it's like, mate, just leave me alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can imagine how really famous people must get.
But that would have been, I think that would have been quality for kids to have seen Zamo and Jonah on holiday together. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, and we were both fairly grounded, so neither of us were sort of walking about like dickheads giving it check me out. Well, for a start, we was at a really crap holiday camp, so it weren't like we was in Los Angeles giving it Johnny Big Bananas. It was at Canberra Sands or something, just in the Butlins. Yeah. So, but funny.
So what do you do now then? How's your life moved?
COVID, mate. COVID has just put the bummers on us all, isn't it? So I thought we'd avoided it in Australia, but turns out we didn't. So yeah, the Delta strain. I work in audio visual, so I work at a couple of hotels, Intercontinental at Circular Quay, which is so where the hotel is. One side is the bridge, and the other side is the Opera House. They're fairly important buildings in Sydney.
How long have you lived in Australia for then?
Yeah, I came over in '89, went backwards and forwards a lot until 2000, and then my ex-partner got pregnant, and then it was like, right, where are you going to bring up a kid? East London or Sydney? And that
Right.
choice was fairly easily made. So we moved to Sydney, and my ex was from a place called Maroubra. So that's sort of it. When I first came to Australia with Lisa, I loved London. And when you're sort of a young man in London, London's a brilliant place, clubs and parties and just having a laugh. But then when you get a bit older and you're thinking about lifestyle and where, Sydney's an unbelievable place. Australia is like mad. And the weather, it is nice to I've almost forgotten what jackets are.
Right.
It's like that. You only wear trousers for about a month because it's all shorts. If you've never been, when this COVID bullshit stops, it's a magical place and definitely worth a visit.
So, just touching on COVID, then, are you locked down at the minute? Then, I take it.
Yeah, we're locked down. I'm lucky because I've been working in the building industry for a while. Literally. So we had a lockdown end of 2020.
Right.
I think it happened in like March, and I think we literally got locked down for 7 months. So during that period, I mean, the events industry, literally, they just closed the doors, lobbed the key, and just went, "You're done."
Right.
So yeah, I had no choice. And a mate of mine's a carpenter, so he said, "I've got some work. If you come and work with me," so literally, I'm back to doing that at the moment. So that industry is still working and going ahead. So yeah, I'm probably the oldest apprentice chippy in Australia, but you got to do what you got to do, right?
So just a few more questions for you then, Lee. Other than Jonah Jones, who do you think was your favourite character on the show?
I love Stu Pot. He was always Mark Burgess is such an absolute gem of a human. Very funny.
Yeah.
I think my first crush was Precious.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about her. But like for my year, looking at the older lot, like it's the same as when you were watching it. You start, a lot of the forums and the same stuff that we used to say, like, "Cool, mate, have a look at that one."
Yeah.
Like, who's your crush? It's Precious. She was wicked,
Yeah.
So, it's funny looking back 35 years. Occasionally I'll have I can't say I watch series 5 and 6 much. It's not like occasionally someone will send something to me. Some of it is just, I saw the zoo one the other day, and literally I can say that the entire script from start to finish, and you go, "Oh, mate, how did it get there like that?" And you just remember doing it, sort of thing. I know people would have gone, "There's no way you can remember that." It's 35 years ago. And go, "Yeah, I did."
No, but I think as well, as you just said there, because of the time that you had filming that episode, because of the affection you've got for that time filming the episode, I imagine that it's one of those things you would remember.
Yeah, you do. And I suppose, you get to learn. I've definitely still got all the scripts. I think my mum must have it in her flat.
Right.
You do the first week is reading through the scripts and getting, used to the actual what's happening in that. They sort of did 2 at a time.
Right.
And then, the next 2 weeks is filming them. So it's, you certainly, and some of the storylines did used to resonate with you, and they are more. Some of them, like some people go on about the badges. I hated wearing them badges, man.
Yeah.
Hated it. It's like I don't even remember I don't even know what that story was about. Just remember having to look like the Pearly King and Queen and hating it.
Yeah, you were wearing a lot of badges in that episode. I remember, if anyone's seen it. So, was there any other character that you would have liked to have played? Was there anyone you thought, "Oh, he's got a cracking bit there"? Like, was there anyone like that?
Maybe as they continued. I mean, Zano, God bless him, had a wicked storyline. Although incredibly tough and obviously well acted, because it ain't easy to play a junkie if you're totally, this is a fit geezer who used to box and whatever. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they go, "Oh, guess what you're going to be doing next week? I'm going to get you on heroin." It's like, okay, I'm going to have to do some research because I've got no idea what Lee wouldn't even smoke a cigarette. It's like,
right.
But again, he's an actor, so he obviously did whatever he needed to do to learn, what they look like, how, how it would affect your body, and then a fair bit of makeup, I'm guessing. So, cool. But yeah, I mean, some of them storylines were pretty good, and 7 years, all the way through. Like, that's a tribute. And they fly to the States to do the Just Say No. You go, no.
So you would have liked to have been Zamo? Is that what you're saying there? Like,
no, not really. I've never thought of it like that. If you weren't Jonah, who would you have wanted to be? It's like, well, I sort of can't really. I was Jonah. That's it. But I suppose if from outside you go, right, which one of them do you want to be? You go, I want to be Jonah. I want to be, Stu Pot. I want to be Tucker. Yeah. Which I still see on a lot of them, because we're obviously on Grange Hill Facebook pages, right? And the arguments are still out there. Like, people are still not giving it. No, mate, don't start with that. He was rubbish. He was much better than he was. And people still get a little bit motivated about it.
Well, so why do you think then there is still such affection for Grange Hill? Why do you think people are talking about it still this day?
Well, look, I suppose the fact it lasted for as long as it did is testament to the show and how it resonated with people. But I think it's the same as, when you see Mr. Ben, or you see, all the shows that we grew up with that weren't the Wiggles, God bless them, they love Wiggles. But when you've got 4 kids, and you've had to do 4 lots of the Wiggles, watching those shows, it's a bit like when you hear a certain piece of music and the Grange Hill, wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
Resonates with you. And you can almost go back to a time. It will take you back to that spot. And you go, yeah, Grange Hill, I used to run over and watch that. Or, Eastenders, or, Emmerdale Farm, or Crossroads, or whatever your thing is. It takes you back to a time. And look, we ain't getting no younger. It's nice to look back at when you was, in your heyday.
Yeah. Right. Well, Lee, thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely great. As I say, you've always been my favourite character, so I'm just made up to have this opportunity to speak to you. And for those of you who are listening, I'll speak to you next time. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Cheers, champion. Love your work, mate.